The day started like any other family outing. We'd been planning this trip for weeks, looking forward to some quality time together, away from the chaos of daily life. My family and I rented a small motorboat to cruise around the lake, a peaceful way to spend the afternoon. The air was crisp, the sun was high, and we had the whole lake to ourselves, or so we thought. The boat was small, just enough for the four of us: me, my wife, our teenage son, and our younger daughter. We'd packed snacks, drinks, and a couple of towels for when we decided to take a dip in the lake. My wife, always the adventurer, suggested we head out to the deeper part of the lake, far from shore. The water was calm, and the boat's motor hummed steadily, creating a sense of calm as we glided along the glassy surface. About an hour in, something started to feel off. I noticed a slight shift in the boat, like it was getting heavier. I brushed it off, thinking it was just my imagination. My daughter was leaning over the edge, peering into the water, laughing as the boat gently rocked. But then, my wife noticed it too. The floor of the boat was damp. "Look, there's water coming in," she said, her voice tinged with concern. At first, I thought it was just a little spill from one of the water bottles. But as the minutes passed, the water level in the boat rose, slowly at first, then faster. Panic set in. We checked the motor in the hull, but we couldn't find a hole. The boat was sinking, and we were too far from shore to just paddle back. The boat lurched, and within moments it was fully submerged, leaving us in the middle of the lake. The wind picked up, dark clouds gathering overhead. The once calm water transformed into choppy waves. We were stranded, with no way to call for help, no land in sight, and no idea how long we could last. "We need to swim," I said, my voice shaking, as I tried to keep my composure for the family. My wife nodded, grabbing our daughter, and my son immediately began to swim ahead, the urgency in his movements unmistakable. I took my wife's hand, and we pushed into the cold, unforgiving water. The swim back was far harder than I ever imagined. The waves were relentless, crashing into us, pushing us in every direction. Visibility was practically zero as the storm clouds darkened the sky. The wind howled in our ears, and the rain started to pour down in sheets, turning the water into a freezing, choppy mess. Every stroke felt heavier, and the cold began to numb my limbs. My wife struggled, her movements slowing as exhaustion took over. I could hear her panting, trying to keep herself above water, but she wasn't strong enough. I can't do this," she gasped. I could feel her grip loosening in mine, but I refused to let go. We were in this together. But as we pushed on, our daughter started to slip farther and farther behind. My heart was breaking as I heard her cry out, her small voice barely audible over the storm. I turned to see her being swallowed by the waves, her frantic movements losing steam. I told myself to keep swimming, but I knew the truth. I had to keep moving if I wanted to survive. Only one of us could make it. My wife's grip weakened, and with every stroke, the reality hit harder. I couldn't carry them both, not in this storm. My mind raced, and I realized I had to leave them behind. I made the hardest decision of my life and forced myself to keep swimming alone. I glanced back one last time, hearing their desperate cries fade as the storm raged on. Hours passed. My body was numb, my energy drained, but somehow I kept moving, propelled by the thought that I might survive. Eventually, the faint outline of an island emerged through the fog and rain. My vision blurred, but I fought through the exhaustion, each stroke feeling like the last. When I finally reached the shore, I collapsed onto the sand, gasping for air, shaking I knew I had to find help. I staggered through the dense trees, searching for any sign of life. The storm raged on, but I pushed through the dense underbrush, my only focus being survival. After what felt like an eternity, I stumbled upon a small cabin. Two people were sitting on the porch, a man and a woman, staring at me with blank, empty eyes. I collapsed at their feet, pleading for help. They offered me food and water, telling me everything would be fine, but something felt off. I didn't trust them, but I was too weak to care. They nourished me, gave me warmth, and assured me I was safe. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. The next day, I was escorted by the same couple to the police. When we arrived at the station, I could hardly process the situation. The officers didn't ask me any questions, just guided me to a table where I could sit down and recover. It wasn't until much later that I learned the truth. The storm had subsided, and the authorities began their search. They found the bodies of my wife and children, their cold, lifeless forms washed up along the shore. I was the only one who made it. But I'll never forget the couple from the cabin. I don't think they were real. The more I thought about it, the more I realized they were a mirage, a figment of my exhausted mind. No one ever saw them again. And now, I'm left with the haunting knowledge that I survived. But at what cost? What really happened out there on that lake? I'll never know. But the memory of that storm, those desperate, futile swims, and the eerie, empty eyes of those strangers will stay with me forever.